I'm Joan Cronan, Athletic Director Emeritus at the University of Tennessee, and I had the privilege of working with UT Athletics, men's and women's athletics, for over 30 years. And it was at a time when Title IX had just been passed. And so the opportunities for women grew, and the University of Tennessee said yes to women before it was cool to say yes. Well, I was a tomboy before it was cool for women to be in sports, and there was nothing to play. My house connected to City Park, so I spent every afternoon at the park, all summer, and I knew I was as good a baseball player, whatever, as the boys, and I wanted to play, but they wouldn't let me play. And I'll never forget when I was 12, I tried out for Little League Baseball. The gentleman said, girls don't play. He offered to let me be a manager. He offered to let me be an assistant coach. He offered to let me be a scorekeeper, cheerleader, but wouldn't let me play. And I knew at that time I wanted to be in a business that helped women learn to compete. Because I think to be successful, one of the ingredients is you've got to be competitive. And I think athletics is a great way to teach people to be competitive. And our male counterparts were having that opportunity, and women were not. Pat Summit was visiting in Charleston. We were both recruiting the same girl from Charleston, and neither one of us got her. She went to Georgia, but Pat caught me and said, why don't you apply for the AD's job at Tennessee? When I came to the University of Tennessee, we had 7 sports for women. I made the commitment that I was going to raise enough money that those 7 were funded in the top 10 in the country.
Hi, my name is Karen Weekly. I'm the head softball coach at the University of Tennessee. I have been here 23 years now, and the first 20 years, my husband and I were co-head coaches together, and then after he retired, I assumed the position of head coach, so my 3rd year as the head coach. Well, the whole reason we came to Tennessee and we were attracted to this position was because of the value Tennessee placed on women's sports and women in general. And that was very evident when Joan Cronan called us back in summer of 2001 to talk about this job. And then when we came up and met Pat Summit right away, and you could just tell that this place didn't value women because the law made them do it. They did it because it was the right thing to do. And it had been a part of the DNA of this place for years, long before Title IX. And obviously Joan and Pat had a lot to do with that, but also the presidents at this university really believed that women's sports should be elevated. And I'd never seen anything like it. I'd grown up playing sports, and I just knew what it was like to be a girl in sports and not have the same opportunities. And when I saw a place that placed women in a position of prominence, I really wanted to be a part of that.
Well, first of all, I've been so blessed to have been a part of the Lady Vol basketball program and to have the best coach in the country coach me during my college career. I've had a lot of good coaches my whole life, but when I had the opportunity to go to Tennessee and be under Pat, that was a blessing and an honor for me, and something that I didn't take lightly, because I know a lot of girls wanted to play for Tennessee and didn't have that opportunity. I feel like that, winning a national championship was the goal from the beginning. Even before I got there as a freshman, I was telling the Booster Club people, we're going to win a national championship. Of course, that was a pretty bold statement for somebody that hadn't even stepped on the court yet. And then every year we kind of got close. My freshman year, I was injured, wasn't really a key member of the team. We had 5 seniors on that team. We lost to USC in the national championship game. It was the first game televised on CBS on TV for a women's game. Then my sophomore year, we won the SEC, but we didn't make it to the Final Four. My junior year, we got beat in Kentucky again by USC. And then my senior year, we won against Louisiana Tech, who was the premier program in the country at that time. So winning a national championship was truly very special.
When I was a little girl, you go to those Lady Ball games and you're like, wow, that's where I strive. I want to be like, and knowing that I made it there is just awesome, but I'm not done yet. It's really just amazing, all the women that come before, all the women that will come after, it's just a foundation that is great to start from, whether it be playing basketball or even just in my journey after basketball with my career.
I'm Dr. Shannon Scoville. I'm an assistant professor of sports communication at the School of Journalism and Media. I competed at the Age Group World Championships in London, had a great experience. I actually competed in the World Championships in 2015 as well in Chicago. Did not perform as well in that event, but yes, I've had a great time both in swimming and triathlon, competing nationally and internationally. So I've just finished a research piece looking at media coverage of NIL and how journalists covered this policy during its first week of implementation, so July 1, 2021 to July 7, 2021. And what I found was that journalists wrote about male athletes 80% of the time and quoted male athletes 80% of the time. So even in that first week, journalists set the agenda that the athletes that people should pay attention to were specifically men's football players and men's basketball players. Even when women athletes were signing more deals and making more money in that first week. When women athletes were covered in that 20%, they were often framed through the lens of their follower count or their physical attributes, which we know leads to a history of marginalization of women athletes. So there have been a number of women athletes who have had great success, and I do believe, as an optimist, that NIL is a net positive thing for women athletes, but I've also seen from my research that journalists tend to cover women athletes through a particular frame that serves to position them as secondary to male athletes when that's not the case.
You know, everywhere we went, Pat always introduced me as her boss. Well, Pat Summitt never had a boss, but I was her colleague and her friend, and our philosophies were so similar that we worked very, very well together, and our goal was to build the #1 women's program in America. And what was neat, we did that in basketball, but because Pat was such a team player, she helped the other sports as well. One of Pat Summitt's favorite saying was, left foot, right foot, breathe. So as a tennis player, one of the things that I think is important in life and in tennis, it's better to serve than receive. So as we go through life, I think it's important that we learn to serve others, and then you get a lot back.
My biggest advice is to go for it. Don't let anybody stand in your way. Don't let anyone tell you you don't belong. One of the things that has made this experience better for me is having more women there, just physically there, to be visible on press row, to make me feel like I've got somebody who's looking out for me, who's got my back, and who's there for me in moments when things get really hard, and they will. And that's not because there's anything wrong with you as a journalist. It's because journalism is a very public field, and people always have a lot to say about your work, particularly in sports where you get super passionate fans, which is what makes it great to write about sports, is people want to read your work because they care about the sport, but it can take a toll, particularly if you're one of a few women covering the sport. But you belong, and look for female mentors and male mentors who are there to support you and amplify you.
Well, you know, we've got our definite dozen up here in our locker room, so we'll start with that. I mean, she created that definite dozen, and there's a lot to that. But also the lessons that Pat has taught me about make winning an attitude, be a great communicator. I think she was she got better at communicating. And I think she really turned the corner in communication when she had her son, Tyler. Well, she has taught me so much. It's hard just to pinpoint one thing, but I think just her intensity and how she goes about making the most out of every day, and to be yourself, because you can't be someone else, and try to be the best self that you can be, and believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. And I think she just instilled a lot of things in me.
Too many things to be proud of, too many games won, but you know what I'm proudest of is the young women that we developed that have gone on to be doctors, lawyers, professional athletes, professional media. We have a whole slew of our former Lady Vols that are on television now. So I'm proud of what they've become, and we hope that our program was a part of helping you be successful.
It was amazing to be on a campus where women's sports has such a rich history, and women's sports are valued, and every time I drive into campus I see her statue, and it just reminds me that women's sports matter here at the University of Tennessee, and I think that's a unique thing. It shouldn't be a unique thing, but there's something special about Pat Summitt's legacy here, and it impacts how we talk about sports journalism in the classroom. And I think, I'm not a women athlete here at Tennessee, but my sense is that the women athletes at Tennessee take such great pride in being a Lady Vol because of the legacy Pat Summitt left here.
Definitely tradition with the Lady Vols, like knowing Pat Summitt and her legacy coming in, and Holly and Kelly, and now our new coach Kim, like they all are just great figures in this program, and there's nothing cut short. You look at Candace Parker, you look at Andrea Carter, like these names are huge, and it really just paves the way for something great.
So I really want to see other young female coaches get involved in the game, because the game needs young coaches that are passionate about coaching and teaching and sending, you know, these lessons to young people to help them become tough young ladies so that they can go on and do great things in their life as a mother, as a wife. You know, the struggles that they're going to face, they're going to be equipped to handle stuff so much better. And I hope that young coaches would look at me and I would be somebody that they would want to come to, and I could help mentor them and help guide them, because that's the way I can give back, to say thank you to Pat Summitt.
I'm so excited about what the future holds. You know, we celebrated 50 years of Title IX, so a lot of things, a lot of building, a lot of growth. And Title IX said equal opportunity. Now, how do you measure that? I don't have to do a study. I don't have to do any statistics. All I have to do is get on an airplane. If I happen to be sitting next to a gentleman and he asks what I do, and I say, Women's Athletic Director at the University of Tennessee, the next question out of his mouth is, I have a daughter, or I have a granddaughter, who? And when moms and dads and grandmoms and granddads want the same opportunities for their daughters as their sons, Title IX is working.